Welcome to the Worship Ministry Training Podcast, a monthly podcast for worship leaders who are serious about growing in their craft and calling. My name is Alex, fellow worship leader. Super stoked you're here. And if you're a new listener, I'm going to encourage you to hit that subscribe button because every single month I'm going to give you helpful, practical guidance that you can immediately implement into your ministry. Hit that subscribe button and then go back through the past 9 years of episodes and binge listen your way to a healthier ministry. And if you're someone who is really serious about growing as a worship leader, I'm going to point you to the Worship Ministry Training Academy. What is the Academy? It's an online training platform that will give you everything you need to build a thriving worship ministry. You'll get 10 in-depth courses on topics like set building, team building, musical excellence, vocal technique, and more. You'll get live monthly training workshops on topics that are relevant to you. You'll get exclusive expert interviews with some of the best worship leaders in the world. You'll get done-for-you ministry admin systems and audition process, onboarding documents, team training materials, and even team discipleship materials. We will take care of you so you can focus on leading your team. If that sounds like something that would be of help to you, you can try the Worship Ministry Training Academy for just $1 by going to worshipministrytraining.com. Sign up today for your $1 trial, and I hope to see you inside of the Academy. All right, let's get into today's episode. Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to another episode of the Worship Ministry Training Podcast. I'm so glad you are here. For the Academy members watching live, hello. I see you guys online, and feel free to use the comments to chat with us and to type things. And then also we're going to be doing a Q&A at the end with the wonderful, the beautiful, the handsome Shalon Palmer from Worship Online, which I will introduce in just a second. Why don't we welcome Shalon to the show? Shalon, how are you doing?
I am doing amazing. Fresh out the sauna.
Fresh out the sauna. Oh my gosh.
My new apartment has a sauna in it. Can you believe that? I was just like, I'm in it every day.
Living the high life.
I know.
So where are you at nowadays? Because you're kind of a world traveler.
I'm in Santa Monica.
Santa Monica. We literally could be doing this interview live because I'm like 25 minutes from you. But
I thought about that too. I thought about that honestly because last time we did the interview, you were like, I'm so close. But
dude, I'm so stoked to connect with you. And you wrote a book on worship mentoring or worship mentors, and it's basically synthesizing all of the conversations that you guys have had with some of the elite worship leaders all over the world, like the best of the best, names that everybody's familiar with. You've interviewed them all and you synthesized their findings into this awesome book, which is actually free. All people have to do is pay for shipping. And so we'll tell them how to get the book in just a minute. But I want to hone this first conversation around the topic of mentoring and mentorship and being mentored or being a mentor, and just kind of start the conversation by why did you write this book and why is it so important that we discuss this topic of mentoring or mentorship?
First off, I'll start off saying that I'm not passionate about mentorship, which drop the mic there. But I mean, I am passionate about people growing and bettering themselves and becoming the best and fulfilling their dreams and achieving things for the kingdom. So, and I think mentorship is one of the most powerful ways to do that. So in a sense, I am passionate about mentorship. I know it's I'm not passionate, but in a sense I am. But it's not the end all. It's yeah, it's just a way to get to the things that we are passionate about. And so I think it's really, really important. And I just wanted to caveat with that. And I basically think that this book it was created initially. I'll just go back because it's a foundation of the lessons I've learned throughout my life. And there was a time when I was actually homeless and sleeping in my truck, and the concepts that are in this book and the reason that I wrote it was they're the things that brought me to where I am today. So I know everyone's wow, I thought we were about to talk about worship leadership, and I just took a turn fast about me being homeless. So it was just right there with me. But if you'll bear with me, this will all come together. I haven't really told this story many times, but I basically kind of failed out of school, and then my mom ended up kicking me out of the house because I wasn't in school anymore, which led to me kind of sleeping in my truck and couch surfing with really whoever would let me. And so at the time, I really had nothing. But I was a groundskeeper at a church and I was a worship leader, and I just wasn't happy. I was depressed, and I had to really figure out what I was going to do because I literally couldn't keep living the way that I was living. It was just, I was constantly struggled. But really what turned it all around for me, and the reason that like it kind of put this book together, was this concept of just feeding my mind. And so what I mean by that is, at the time, like, I was lucky enough to have a mentor figure in my life, and he told me this, and like, this is one of the most important things that kind of took me from that depressed state. And he said stand guard at the door of your mind. And I remember that he came to me one day when I was like super frustrated and like all these things going on, and I was working so hard and it felt like nothing was working. I was just completely fed up. And he came to me and said, "Shalon, what are you reading? Like, tell me who you're talking to. Tell me who you're surrounding yourself with." And I was like, "Well, I'm mostly like by myself or like with my friends, you know." And then so he broke it down like this. He said, "Answer this question for me." And I remember very vaguely. He was like, "What happens if your worst enemy drops by and drops," I think he said, "drops sugar in your coffee?" And I was like, "Well, you'd have sweet coffee." "Yeah, okay." He said, "Yeah, so now what happens if your best friend, like even by accident or even a loved one or a family member, sister, friend, or grandma, grandpa drops one drop of strychnine in your coffee?" And I was like, "Well, you'll be dead for sure." And he said, "You're right. Now remember, life is both sugar and strychnine, so watch your coffee." And I remember like, what the heck? What the heck does that even mean? And it comes to find out, he went in to explain a little more. What he really meant was stand guard at the door of your mind. Like, be careful who and what you let speak into your life. And it just kind of clicked right there. And I was like, oh, I get it. Like without going off on a tangent, like the media, for instance, like they're not bad people. Like but they're companies, you know, they got to take care of their shareholders, and the way they win is by getting your eyeballs. And so the only way they get your eyeballs in a world where there's just so much information coming everywhere is just to startle you. And so the news is not designed to educate you and inform you, and you know that, but it's why they say things like how drinking water will kill you. Tune in at 11, you know? It's like just silly things. And it's like, and anything that grabs you, it's like we live in this culture of fear. And so if you're gonna take your life back and you're gonna like stand guard at what you're allowing into your mind, there's literally people out there whose entire life is designed clickbait and algorithms just to get you to stay online longer, and it's not necessarily to our advantage. And so how this relates to mentorship, and I put this study in the book. It's like Harvard did this study recently, and they found that the people you habitually associate with, they determine as much as 95% of your success or failure in life, and like that's a lot. I've even heard it said like this: you're the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. Yep. So if you're constantly around 5 negative people, like you're going to be the 6th. And if you're constantly around 5, like, you know, overweight or unhealthy people, you're going to be the 6th. If you're around 5 winners, you're going to be the 6th. Like, that's just the way I've even heard it. I even heard it originally. Like, if you're around 5 losers, you're going to be the 6th. Right. And like, I knew at the time, like that was absolutely true in my life, because I was struggling in my relationships. And, you know, if you can look back, like, so were most of the people I hung around, and like, you know, I was out of shape and had a terrible diet, and, you know, so were all the people that I was hanging around. You know, I was struggling in like my work and like, you know, wanting to be a worship leader. And like, it's like, I didn't know anyone who was good at that or like knew how to actually make an impact with their teams. And like, you know, all these things, like, and it was just kind of obvious that the people I was hanging around weren't like, if I was becoming like them, they weren't the best influences, you know, great people, but I needed to find some people that I could actually, you know, learn from, and that could, you know, help guide the conversations that I'm having and the mentalities and the things that I'm thinking about all day. every day. So if I was going to get like anywhere in those like areas that I wanted to improve in, specifically worship leadership, like I needed some like new perspectives that actually
Mm,
worked. And
yeah.
and even more, it's like a lot of times going back to the coffee strychnine thing, even more, it's like many times like our friends and like the people that love us, they have the best intentions, but they may be the ones dropping strychnine into our coffee. So it's like be careful who you let speak into your life, and you can do that by examining the fruits. So I started being aware of like who was saying what and like what I was taking in.
Mm,
Like for example, and I love my mom to death. I love my mom to death, and I mentioned before we got started, like my mom's been divorced a couple times, a few times, and she's single now, and in her old age, and she's struggled with her relationships for as long as I can remember.
mm-hmm.
And although she means well, and I love her to death, I'm not going to take my relationship advice from her. I know that's kind of a controversial thing to say, but it's like I really have to guard like who I'm taking my advice from. I can honor her and respect her, but like when she starts giving me advice for a relationship, and that's with anyone who's been, isn't it funny how like our friends who like have the worst relationships and like ever, they're the first ones to give us advice on our relationships, and it's
Right.
like okay, and so I'm very cautious about what I'm allowing into my mind. With that said, my mom is like one of the most loving, giving like prayer warriors that I know. So like
Mm,
when she starts to like talking about things like having a healthy prayer life or like how to love your children the best, that's like when I start to like listen up. And so it's like
mm-hmm.
just pay attention to the fruits, it's like people like our friends and our family, like they love to give unsolicited advice, and like how often are we letting people speak into our lives that have no idea themselves how to achieve like success in those areas. And so like why am I taking financial advice from like Chris when like Chris is caught up in his third Ponzi scheme this month? It's like it's funny, but we do it every day. So like pay close attention to the fruits of the people's lives that you're allowing to like speak into you. And so the thing that changed my life and the reason that I wrote this book is whenever you want to grow in any area of your life, like seek out the most successful people you know or that you can find in
Mm-hmm.
those areas. And that is the fastest way to grow, like bar none.
Mm-hmm.
Surround yourself with their wisdom so you start to think like they think and you start to act like they act. And like I said at the beginning, it's like I'm not necessarily like passionate about mentorship, but I am
Mm-hmm.
passionate about like achieving like and growing and like becoming the best version of yourself so you can like give to others and help grow the kingdom. So the way you can do that is like go after that knowledge, get it from books, get it from podcasts, even one-on-ones. And like this is a big one that a mentor told me is like great ideas are never going to interrupt you, they have to be pursued. So
Mm-hmm.
if you don't pursue it, you're just going to get what everyone else has. So what everyone else has is what? Fear, uncertainty. Everybody's focused on what won't work, what can't happen, and why it can't happen because they're afraid. They're afraid to fail, they're afraid to try, and they're because they don't want to feel like they're not enough or whatever. So you have to stand guard at the door of your mind, but you also have to feed your mind. And so there's this quote from, I don't know if you know who Jim Rohn is. He's like old school,
Mm-hmm.
like self-development kind of coach. And this is kind of one of the things that this whole book is based on, is kind of this idea. It's like success leaves clues.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole Worship Mentors book is based on like that premise. The fastest way to success is by studying successful people. If someone is successful, they're not lucky. They're doing something different than you. And I know I keep saying the word success, and in ministry and Christianity, that can be like a no word. 'Cause it's like, oh, success, like we're just here for God. But it's like success can mean like a lot of different things.
Right.
It's like success can be like happiness. It can be fulfillment. It can be like successfully like achieving your dreams, or successfully like bringing someone to Christ, or successfully like whether that's financial, whether that's in your health, whether that's in like any area of your life, whether that's in your personal growth and development. Like
Mm-hmm.
I keep using success, but that's what I mean when I say
Yeah,
success. And
it's achieving your potential. It's achieving what God
yeah,
put you here to do, the purpose that he placed you on the planet. It's living that out and fulfilling it.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think that's such an important thing. And it's like if someone is successful, just they're like they're doing something different than you, and like the success leaves clues, and let's find out what they're doing. And like
Mhm.
actually, this is kind of funny, another mentor of mine told me one time, it's like, find out what unhappy, unsuccessful, and unfulfilled people are doing and reading, and don't do that, and don't read that.
Yes, that's so true.
I was like, I always thought that was funny, and it makes a lot of sense actually too. So, find out what successful people do, what happy, fulfilled people do, what people changing the world for the better do, and do that. And like this, simple idea is what changed my life from like being like homeless and depressed and like feeling like unfulfilled to I mean, it's funny. We actually had crossed the $150,000, 50,000. Oh my God, not dollar, 50,000 worship leader and musicians have gone through one of our trainings as of last year. So I'm pretty excited about that. That was like a big number we
Yeah.
hit. It's like, oh my God, 150,000. Like one of our trainings, a lot of them are free, some of them are paid, but like that's a big number. Like we've like had a
Huge
dealt with a
impact.
lot of people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so amazing. So that's kind of this one idea is like what took me from that place to like being able to be a part of something that's like I could have never dreamed of. I could have never
Mm.
dreamed of something like this. So it's like so years ago, like about 4 years ago actually, is like when I went out to look for a resource of like the best advice for worship leaders from successful leaders that are actually doing it and making a massive impact in the world, like, so I could study them like we've talked about it. Fortunately, that just didn't exist. So we decided to create it. So 4 years ago now, we started interviewing people, and we started to study everyone that we could find that was like making a huge impact in the kingdom through worship, like from worship leaders, like from songwriters, worship pastors, band leaders. Some in the book are like really well known, and some are like lesser known because it's like, these people were actually making like a huge impact in their community, even though they're not worldwide known.
Hmm.
We met with them too, and then kind of distilled their best advice and strategies into like this I've been holding it. I don't know if you can see it. I've been holding
Yeah.
it into this action-packed book of success clues. It's like the success clues that is a worship mentor. So it's basically a collection of proven blueprints like, for making a massive impact in the world through worship. So even like a complete beginner like worship leader with no voice or team like could gain like the confidence and skill set to change their community and the
Mm.
world through worship, and we're giving it away for free.
I love it. That's so amazing. And we'll put links in the show notes where and below the YouTube video where people can get that. And so many things you share is like it's so scriptural. In case everybody's thinking this is like, hey, this sounds kind of like self-development or new agey or whatever. It's not, because if you think about what it says, Paul says bad company corrupts good character, right? Like who you befriend is who you become. And I
Hmm.
think I think that is so true. And so really like looking at who you're spending time with really matters. And then I was just preparing a lesson for our church. I'm teaching about like managing technology and like about all the inputs that we're putting in our mind. And there's a proverb. I didn't know it was a proverb. I typed in the phrase and I realized it's a proverb, but it says, as a man thinketh, so he is. It's like what
Hmm.
you think about is how, and then it says, guard your heart, for out of it flows, it's the wellspring of life. And like your whole life flows from it, you know?
Hmm.
So we have
Yeah,
to guard
so
our
good.
heart and our mind, wrong way, heart and mind. And yeah, we have to protect our thoughts and our thinking. And so I think everything you shared is so good. And one thing that you said too is find someone who has been wildly successful at what you want to do and go talk to them, because there's a way
Hmm.
they got there. So you can follow that path. They've already paved the
Hmm.
way. And so I think that's for me, the podcast, I've been doing it for 8 years. It's been so helpful for me. It started out before I was, recording it. It was like I would go to the church down the street who's got a bigger, sanctuary and fancier stuff and a better band. And I would be like, hey, I'm taking you out to lunch. Like, tell me everything you know.
Yeah,
And so that's how it starts.
yeah,
And you start to get better because you're surrounding yourself with people who are better than you. So I love
yeah.
everything you shared.
I can't even imagine like the like amount of like wisdom and knowledge and advice that you take in like just from doing this podcast. It's like
Right.
I know a lot of people that have like started podcasts just not because they wanted to grow an audience, just because they wanted an excuse to just sit down and like talk with people and learn
Yeah.
themselves.
Yep.
And I'm sure that's what you're doing. Like, 'cause I can't even imagine.
Yeah, I'm getting like a free masterclass from you right now, and so are all of
Yeah.
our listeners. It's crazy. Um, so I would love to ask a couple more questions about mentorship. Are there any kind of common misconceptions that people have about mentorship? I think one of them you hit on that I'd love for you to expound upon is
Mhm.
you don't have to take good advice and bad advice from the same person. You can separate people out based on what they're good
Mhm.
at. Can you share more about that and any other kind of common misconceptions that you see?
For sure. I think yeah, like you said, it's like you don't have to have one mentor. I know growing up in church, it's like find a mentor or like have like create disciples or discipleship, that kind of thing. Um, but you don't have to have just one mentor. Like I have a lot. Like I have a lot like for different areas of my life. Like my business mentor is way different than my like fitness and health person that I look up to, and like that person is way different than the person I look up for my like spirituality type stuff. And so because I want to be like the best in all of those areas, and it's like my like pastoral mentor isn't necessarily an expert on health and wellness, and he doesn't know how to like what the fastest way to like get lean and like create like a healthy body and like make my body alkaline and like all that kind of stuff. So it's like you don't have to do that. Like it's a misconception that you have to just have one person. I think you should have a lot. I think you should have many. And I think also, but definitely be like just have discernment about who you're allowing to speak into your life if you're just going to have a lot. But I say I have a lot. It's just like a handful of like very specific people. And another misconception I think is like you, you don't, and this is what holds people back a lot of time, I think, is like they think that you have to have like these one-on-one personal conversations. It's like no, like we're in the 20 wait, are we in the 22nd century? No, 21st century. 21st century. We are in the 21st century. Like you do not have to personally speak to anybody. For my first like 6 years of like growing like in like and be on this journey, it's like I had maybe one person that I spoke to personally, but like I you don't have to do that. It's great, but like I jump into like books and podcasts and audiobooks like that. I think that's a big one that holds people back. I don't have a mentor because I don't know anybody. And it's like
Mm,
yeah, that's okay. Like anything you want is online right now. Like just go online, do a Google search. The books have been written on everything and anything. Especially, I mean, like it's a big one. Like Worship Mentors is like it's a book. Like you're probably not going to have the luxury to go out and speak to all of these people like we did. But you can read the book and you can like study these people and study their lives and like listen to their podcasts and like learn so much. And just I when I first like kind of started out like building like worship online, I just dove headfirst into like books and like podcasts and like wisdom from people, and I was just ingesting all of this knowledge and all of
mhm.
this wisdom, just like, and it became part of who I am. Like every time I went on a walk or run, I had headphones in just listening, or like anytime I had downtime, like I was reading a book. And it's like at the time I didn't really like have any friends. I had moved to a new city, so like all of my communication and the five people I was hanging out with the most were virtual mentors that I never spoke to personally, and
Right.
like that changed everything, like down to a cellular level in my body. It changed my mind, how my mind was wired. I started thinking bigger. I started like seeing more possibilities. I started, being very solution minded instead of problem minded, and like it changed just like those like conversations that I was having virtually in my mind with these mentors changed every bit of like who I am and like what I started to like think about. And so I think that's a big one. Like if you don't know like people personally, that's fine. That is completely fine. Do it virtually. Dive into books. Like if you're the average of the five people you hang out with most, make
Mhm.
make those five people like that you're spending a lot of time with, like books and like authors, like spend time with them through their books,
Mhm.
like you ingest that knowledge. I think that's a huge one. That's just like there's nothing can hold. No, there's no excuse now. Like you have the information, you have the knowledge, like you can do it.
Yeah, I think that's so huge. And I think for me, well, I'll just recap what you said quickly so everybody makes sure they catch it. You don't have to know the person personally, and you can have multiple mentors who are good at different things. So one who's good at spiritual life, one who's good at finances, one who's good at business, one who's good at health. You can, and then yeah, for me, something that I've realized, I didn't realize I'd do this, but I do this quite often, is if I have a topic I want to learn, I'll find a podcast about it and I'll go like through the entire archive of episodes, which by the way, everybody who listens to the Worship Ministry Training Podcast or the Worship Online Podcast, you should do that as well and go through all of our last many years of episodes and find the ones that you're interested in. I always tell people to do that, but I'll go do that personally. So just recently, I like binge listened like every Alex Hermosi episode. He's a business guy that looked interesting to me. Probably like I spent 7 hours ingesting all of his thinking or more, maybe 20 hours. And right now I'm doing the same thing for online marketing made easy with Amy Porterfield. I'm just like, I just get to know a person like pretty soon. I like listen to them for so intensely for such a like in such a short period of time with so
Mhm.
much input that like pretty soon I already know what they're going to say. And that's how like
Yeah,
I grow and I change. So I think that's a really great
yeah.
approach that you shared. Do you have anything like to say about what makes a good student? Because now we know kind of like, what kind of mentors we should be looking for, but
Yeah.
what makes a good student? What makes someone a good mentee?
Yeah, I think that like on that topic too, I think that like the focus really is on like what makes a good mentee, because a good mentor is just quite literally someone who has like some sort of success in a specific area, like in a specific area. Because I don't think it's the I don't think it's the mentor's job to make sure that you're getting the information that they're giving you. I think all of it, like I said before, like information has to be pursued. Like it's not going to be handed to you. So like a good mentor has already learned all of this information. They've already done it. It's your job to get the information from them. So like just because they're great at something doesn't mean that they're going to be a great teacher either. So it's your job to like ask the right questions, like hang around and like soak up bits of information when you can, and like the great ideas, like I said, they're not going to interrupt you. You have to get out there and really get them. So that's what makes a great mentee, is someone who goes out and is hungry to get that information. So, like a really like good mentor like isn't going to pursue you because they're successful. They're busy. A good mentor is busy. You have to be diligent. You have to find ways that you can serve them and bring value to them. And there's like really high level mentorship programs. And I heard you mention Alex Hormozy. He tells this story about how he paid like, what is it, some crazy like not million. He pays like $100,000 or something more just to be able to like be in a mastermind group to just like speak to someone like once a month. So it's like in these like high level mentorship programs, you can easily pay like six figures a year just to be able to speak to someone. Because they know the value, they understand the value that like this mentorship and guidance from someone who has done it before, to get you from A to B. Like time is the most valuable resource here. It's not money. You can always get more money. You can never get more time. So it's like, how can we shorten our distance from A to B? So,
Mm,
and like a lot of us, we like to like sit on the sidelines and be like, oh, we can't afford it, and just like, that's the end of it, or like we don't have the time, or like whatever. And like I'm here to tell you that you can't afford not to.
mm,
Because I know whether it's obviously we're not spending $100,000 to speak to someone a couple times, but maybe you offer to work for someone for free. Like maybe you buy someone lunch, maybe you do something for them. Like get creative. Like we tend to value things a lot more anyway when we put in some of our own energy. So if you're just getting things, if a mentor just came to you and was like, hey, I want to teach you, you'd be like, okay, that's great, but like you didn't put forth any of your own energy. There was no energy exchange there. So it's like, but if you were like, if I paid you $1,000 to like talk to me for an afternoon, you're dang right. I'm listening to everything you said. I'm taking a note on everything you said. I'm implementing it immediately. It's like, we value things a lot more when we put in our own energy. So if you are looking for someone in person, like get out there, work for that. There's so much value in like working someone for free or doing something or offering some sort of, maybe you have a skill that you can exchange. Like, I know I met with a business coach one time, and I remember we were having a conversation, and he was like talking about like something about his goals, and goals are something that like I've studied a lot and like have done a lot and like taught a lot of people about like how to set effective goals and stuff. So I was like, I can help you. Like I've done this training and this training for like goals. I've been to a lot of things on learning that. And he was like, really? So we instantly right there, like he was like, okay, cool. Like, yeah. So I just like laid out everything I knew about goals and like just served him, like, and so he was happy to like meet with me a couple times a month just to like talk about, what I had questions about, like, and I was teaching him about this thing that I knew about, so we had, there's areas that we can like teach things. And so, I know that I mentioned this a second ago, but there's another quote that I love, and I really wish I could remember who said this, but it's like, if you let your learning lead to knowledge, you become a fool. If you let your learning lead to action, that's when your life changes. And so I think a great mentee or just any student of life puts into action the things that they're learning. I don't like, they don't get caught up in the learning. It's more about the doing and the action. And so everybody has amazing ideas. Everybody has $1 million idea. Like when someone comes to me or anyone, they're talking about, I have this idea that's like $1 million. I don't even bat an eyelid. I'm like, that's cool. Everybody has a million ideas. The thing that separates people that are actually successful and people that just have ideas is the action, the implementation, the actually doing it. So it's like, it's way different than just having an idea and then doing it. But yeah, I think that's what makes a great mentee, just like that, putting it into action, and the willingness to get out there and do it.
You guys, there's so much gold. I want everybody to go back and rewatch or re-listen to this episode, because like what Shalon is sharing is like, this is how we move forward in any sphere of our lives. And so I know this isn't like the typical like worship leader stuff, but this is like the actual important stuff of like, not how to play your guitar or build a set. Those things matter, and we all have courses on all that stuff, right? But really, like, this is the stuff that will give you the steam you need and the knowledge you need, and then the skills you need and the actions you need to take to move forward in every area of your life. And so as we wrap up this first part of the conversation on mentorship, I want to just kind of maybe not ask you, but maybe just say this to the listeners, that what you need to do now is say, who is someone in a place where I want to be one day, whether they're digital on the internet or like it's a podcast, or whether it's someone in your church, or whether it's someone who's really healthy or whatever, or financially set. Who is the person that is currently where you want to be in the future? And then just go ask them how you can serve them and glean from them at the same time. And I think that's the first step you need to take. If you're listening to this and you're like, I need to find some more mentors and surround myself with people who are where I want to be, identify who those people are and then make steps towards them. That would be kind of the big action step from this episode. Do you have any closing words before I ask you to share where people can get the book and connect with you?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, like if there's anything that you want to do in your life, like worship leadership, whether you want to like grow a ministry or a team or like literally anything, there is a 99.9999% chance that someone out there has done it before. So finding a mentor is just literally just finding that person or people. A mentor, it's a guide that can shorten your distance from A to B by 90%. It's like, so if you're a worship leader or you want to be one, I think worship mentors will definitely help shorten your learning curve in every area of worship leadership. We've covered like even building a set. We've covered, songwriting, leading ministries, prayer, like all the like spontaneous worship, all of those things from people that are like doing it every day, that are experts in their field and have grown massive impacts through that. So you could spend your entire life like trying to learn how to be a great worship leader, or you can stand on the shoulder of giants and shorten your distance from A to B.
That's so good. And where can they get the book?
Worshipmentorsbook.com.
Awesome. Perfect URL. And I will also put that link in the show notes or under the YouTube video. Shalon, thank you for your time. Academy members, we're going to jump into the Q&A in just a second. So hang tight and we'll see you in a second. Thanks for tuning in today. I hope this episode encouraged you, helped you, and pushed you forward in your ministry. If it helped you, can you take a second and help us by sending it to just one person that you think needs to hear this? And if you're feeling extra nice, leave us a nice, shiny 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, or like this video if you're watching it on YouTube. If you want to discuss this episode or ask questions, we do have a free section in our Academy where you can post comments and questions and chat with other worship leaders just like you, and also sample some of our courses. And you can go to worshipministrytraining.com/free to join us inside the free portion of the Academy. If you're looking for more, check out the Full Access Academy. You can get 15 days for just $1 to start and try things out. Again, you can try all of it for 15 days for just $1 by going to worshipministrytraining.com. Hope to see you inside the Academy, or else I'll see you next month for another helpful episode.